Hello everyone, and welcome back to Multi-Level Mess. My name is Tori, and boy, 2020 sure has been a hell of a ride. I'm quite the nihilist, so I'm not holding my breath about next year being miraculously better, but I'll still be glad for this year to be over and done with. I'm also not honestly super excited about the holidays. Christmas in particular is stressful for several reasons, which I'm not going to go into those, but I just wanted to get my mind off of that stress, and I figured doing another video would help distract me. So let's get into it. I did a poll on Twitter asking what I should do next, and surprise, surprise, you all wanted more anti-MLM content. Really? You wanted me to cover more multi-level marketing on a blog called Multi-Level Mess? Okay then. Since it's December, I decided I wanted to take a look back over the year and at some of the top anti-MLM news stories that caught my attention. I, of course, don't have time to go over every single lawsuit or change of leadership, but these are the stories that piqued my interest the most. And just a disclaimer, I won't be discussing any of the drama that went down in the anti-MLM community. It's already been covered enough, and for the sake of this video, I just wanted to focus on the news about these shady companies. I'm also going to be experimenting with different ideas for video formats, so today I'm going to be trying my hand at doing more voiceover stuff, so we'll see how that goes. Most of the stories I'm recapping are from the second half of this year. Part of the reason for that is my attention was drawn to other issues during the first half. Between political tension, a powerful surge of Black Lives Matter activism, and a global pandemic, 2020 has had more than its fair share of topics to overwhelm me. But speaking of the pandemic, there's no surprise that MLMs tried to capitalize on the hardships caused by it. In fact, it got so bad that the FTC had to put their foot down and send out warning letters to 10 MLM companies in April. These letters told the MLMs to remove and address claims that they or their participants were making about their product's ability to treat or prevent coronavirus disease, or about the earnings people who have recently lost income can make, or both. In letters alleging unsubstantiated health claims, the FTC states that one or more of the efficacy claims made by these companies are unsubstantiated because they are not supported by scientific evidence, and therefore violate the FTC Act. In letters alleging unsubstantiated earnings claims, the FTC reminded the companies about what constitutes a false or misleading earnings claim that would violate the FTC Act. This is the list provided by the FTC of the MLMs that received warning letters. In June, a second round of warning letters were sent out to 6 additional MLMs. In August, it was reported that Herbalife, the MLM that sells nutritional supplements and bullshit weight loss shakes, and was the focus of the documentary Betting on Zero, would be paying $123 million to settle some legal charges. What were these charges, you ask? Well, that they had conspired to bribe Chinese officials and falsify its books to boost its business in China, according to the U.S. Department of Justice. The following was reported by CNN Business. U.S. officials charged Herbalife with making corrupt payments over nearly a decade to Chinese government officials and state-owned media outlets. The payments, according to prosecutors, were used to obtain licenses to sell products and to influence investigations and coverage of the company. To conceal the payments, the company maintained false accounting records. For example, recording improper payments as travel and entertainment expenses, court documents say. As part of the settlement, Herbalife has admitted to the charges and agreed to pay a criminal fine of $55.7 million. Its total combined penalties in the case will top $123 million. Aw, it's okay, Herbalife. Not everyone can get away with controversial dealings with China like Disney has. I had originally found it interesting that shortly before the news of the settlement broke, it was reported that a major stockholder for Herbalife, Carl Icahn, sold $716 million in Herbalife stock. I'll say now, though, that it was probably a coincidence because apparently this was part of a deal to sell the stock back to Herbalife. It's just that the timing made it look like Icahn knew shit was about to hit the fan. Back in 2019, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson had announced a lawsuit against fashion disaster MLM LuLaRoe, alleging it of being a pyramid scheme. Honestly, I don't see how there could be any argument for it not being one, seeing as its logo is literally a pyramid as seen from above. Solid evidence, Your Honor. If you need a lawyer, give me a call. I'll be happy to inform you that I'm not a lawyer. Anyway, this year in August, Ferguson posted the following on Facebook. Today, we defeated LuLaRoe's motion arguing that its operational model doesn't meet the legal definition of pyramid scheme. We look forward to holding the company accountable for its illegal business model. A trial is scheduled for February 16th. Needless to say, this is looking at least a little promising, so I'll be paying attention in February so I can see what happens next. Monate, the MLM that proudly shills shampoo that causes hair loss and chemical burns, had to reach a legal agreement in September with the Attorney General of Florida. As of September 14th, Monate and its consultants have to comply and are now no longer allowed to do certain things or make certain claims. To easily understand what is no longer allowed, the MLM police put together some images, which they have permitted me to use here, so go check them out on Twitter and Facebook, by the way. They're super awesome. So they're no longer allowed to make any of the following claims. Your scalp is detoxing and or your hair follicles are enlarging. Monate is certified by any entity, including the government, aka the FDA, etc. Consumers receive a 100% money-back satisfaction guarantee. Products are clinically proven to increase hair growth and decrease hair loss. Independent lab tests confirm the safety and effectiveness of the products. Products do not contain polyethylene, glycol, petrochemicals, sulfates, harmful fragrances or colors, and is 100% vegan or gluten-free. On top of this, there's also the things that they can no longer do. They cannot use stock photos in deceptive before and after pictures to advertise, sell, or offer to sell. To add to that, they cannot say in advertisements that people reported any type of results through their products, aka in before and after pictures or in testimonials. There cannot be any mention, existence, contents, validity, results, or conclusion of any test, study, or research. Any market partner, aka a distributor or consultant, found in violation of the order will be terminated. There have been unconfirmed reports that Arnold Schwarzenegger is standing by. This definitely is considered a huge victory for the anti-MLM community because a lot of these claims in the past have led to unsuspecting buyers suffering actual physical harm and basically being told when they complain that it's not a huge deal or that it's an allergic reaction, when we know that's hardly ever true. I'm glad to see this Attorney General buckle down on these harmful claims. This compliance agreement should cripple Monate and make it harder for them to deceive and gaslight customers. I really hope that at least some consultants will have seen this as an eye-opener. Before I get into these last two stories, I'm going to put a quick content warning because there will be mention of sexual abuse, trafficking, and exploitation, including the involvement of minors as well as physical harm. If you need to skip ahead, I'll do my best to include a timestamp here for you to skip to. The reason I've included this warning is because I'm going to be talking about NXIVM. NXIVM was a so-called self-help MLM that was shut down after victims came forward and revealed that it was actually a sex cult. Now, I know I've already drawn my comparisons and conclusions between MLMs and cults in general, but NXIVM, hands down, was an extreme exception. Most MLMs, I can safely say, are at least not guilty of the shit that went down in NXIVM. The cult offered classes to around 17,000 people, including prominent figures such as Allison Mack and Claire Bronfman. In 2019, NXIVM founder Keith Raniere was convicted and found guilty of 7 counts: racketeering, racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud conspiracy, forced labor conspiracy, sex trafficking conspiracy, and attempted sex trafficking. Former group members who testified against Rainier spoke about how they were pressured into sexual acts and ritualistically branded with his initials. One of his victims was only 15 years old at the time, but had been groomed since she was 13. She also stated that Rainier had taken nude photos of her. Members of this inner sex circle became slaves and were blackmailed by their masters. Look, I have nothing against consenting adults safely engaging in some kinky shit, but this goes way beyond that. Like, way beyond that. Far beyond what anyone in the BDSM community would deem as okay, because it's not. There are more details about the testimonies from victims that I could go into to further emphasize my point, but I'm not going to. The articles and documentaries are out there if you need further elaboration. Getting back on track, the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District had the following to say about the verdict. This trial has revealed that Rainier, who portrayed himself as a savant and a genius, was in fact a massive manipulator, a con man, and the crime boss of a cult-like organization involved in sex trafficking, child pornography, extortion, compelled abortions, branding, degradation, and humiliation. This year, on October 27th, Rainier was sentenced to 120 years in prison. Also, 5 women who've been part of the NXIVM leadership have pled guilty to related crimes. One was the previously mentioned Claire Bronfman, who was sentenced to nearly 7 years in prison, which, while it seems quite lenient to me, was more than the recommended sentence. My heart goes out to all the victims in this case, and I commend those who found the strength to testify. I'm sure it couldn't have been easy. I cannot put into words just how terrible this all is, but at least some justice has been served. Rainier deserves every one of those 120 years, and it is a shame that he likely won't live long enough to suffer his full sentence. Strangely enough, just as the NXIVM headlines started dying down, which, as I said, I'd imagined as the exception to the rule when it comes to the shadiness of MLMs and how cult-like they can be, apparently another MLM shouted, "Hold my beer, watch me strip." It seems another MLM is being investigated by the FBI for sex trafficking. I wish I was joking. This one was brought to my attention by the MLM police, so that makes 2 shoutouts to them in one video. It's called One Taste, though it seems to be more commonly referred to as the orgasm cult. Yeah, you heard me. One Taste is, from my brief look into it, and I mean brief because I wasn't eager to take a closer look, is a supposed orgasmic meditation company. It's supposed to promote sexual wellness education, which, in and of itself, I wouldn't take issue with, but allegedly it has caused members to go into severe debt, I know, shocking for an MLM, and suffer from sexual manipulation and abuse, something actually shocking for MLMs. Again, I hate MLMs and have been outspoken about how awful they can be, but I will not go so far as to say that they normally sexually exploit their members, as far as I or the general public are aware. One Taste and NXIVM at this time still serve as extreme exceptions and should be regarded as such. However, for One Taste, these are still just allegations. As the investigation unfolds, I believe we'll get a clearer picture, though I won't disregard the claims from the alleged victims. I will believe them because so far I have not been given reason to believe they're lying. I will, however, talk about this with an air of caution, as nothing is confirmed at the time of me recording this. I will say that I'm not at all surprised that this MLM has ties to Khloe Kardashian and Gwyneth Paltrow, especially the latter. Trafficking allegations aside, I wouldn't put it past either of them to be connected to a sexual pyramid scheme, when one's claim to fame is a family member's sex tape, and the other is notorious for her Goop snake oil company, and a Netflix show dedicated to pseudoscience bullshit and unsafe practices. Let me be clear, I'm not accusing them of the allegations being investigated, but rather just stating that I'm not surprised that they could be involved with a sexual wellness education scam. In case you couldn't tell, I'm not a big fan of the Kardashians or of Gwyneth Paltrow. So that brings us to the end of my 2020 recap. I'm sorry I wasn't able to cover more news stories, but I am interested in hearing what you guys thought was the most interesting tea, as it were, about MLMs this year. I know there was Young Living freaking out about those articles that I think they were done by Business Insider. And there was Mary Kay shutting down in Australia and New Zealand. Basically, there was a lot of stuff I didn't go over. So leave a comment telling me your favorite MLM news story of 2020. This will probably be my last video of the year. With the holiday season going on, I am super busy at work and I don't have as much time or energy to write and record, but maybe I can squeeze in another blog post or two. We'll see. And if I do, you can find them at multilevelmess.wordpress.com. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter, where I'm usually posting a lot more updates. Please have a safe holiday season, everyone. I know that this can be a difficult time of year for a lot of people, especially this year. So please don't be afraid to reach out and talk to someone. And if you know someone who might be struggling, I encourage you to reach out to them. If I don't see you before the new year, I wish you a hopeful new year. Take care, everyone.
I hate Christmas parties. You offer me some punch, but I just shrug. I hate Christmas parties. You and the cookie tray both hear me say bah humbug.